Hey, welcome. My name is Dr. Terrance L. and I am the creator of raciallyjustschools.com, where our goal is to help leadership collectives build racially just schools through praxis-based learning experiences. And I am so excited that you're here with us today because on today's video, I am going to address a question that I've probably gotten hundreds of times over the years. And the question is this: it's how do we prioritize our racial justice or our equity or our anti-racism work this school year? And what I mean by this question is not like, oh, we're doing all these other things and how do we add on racial justice to what we're doing? But no, I'm talking about where you have identified that racial justice is going to be the integrating force throughout everything you do, and you realize that there's just so many things to do. The question becomes like, how do you start to prioritize this? And this question often comes up after collectives and leadership teams and groups have either done like a needs assessment and equity audit. They spend some time really talking to families and community members and caregivers and youth, and they realize that, look, this mug is jacked up, right? And you realize that the work to do ahead of you is massive, right? And so sometimes it can feel overwhelming. Sometimes you can feel unsure. And so today, what I want to do, I'm going to have a two-part video. I'm going to take you through a process that I typically would use with leadership teams, with school districts, with schools, about like, how do you start to prioritize the many things that you need to do in your work for racial justice, okay? But before I begin, a couple of things. Number one is that what I'm going to share with you today is part of a larger process. So typically, teams would have already done a few things prior to this, like you would have gotten super clear on like what you're pursuing, what your aims, what your goals are, right? And so another thing would have happened is you would have generated a lot of possibilities, ideas that you could begin to praxis or begin to engage in, to confront and dismantle white supremacy and racism and anti-blackness in your school, but at the same time to start to build racially just schools. The second thing is that this is contextual, right? So based on the leadership team that you're working with, it will shift and it will shape and it will inform that which you set out to do and how you prioritize. So for an example, if you are, a school board doing this versus, 3 new teachers who just arrived to a district that the district don't want to hear nothing at all about racial justice, that will inform how you think about the prioritization of your work and what you actually do. So I want you to just remember that context matters in all of this, right? All right, so let's jump into it and let's begin. Now, the other quick thing is that everything I'm gonna share with you is just for an example purpose, right? So the examples I'm gonna share with you, this is just for you to get experience of going through the process. So the examples and the things that I share, they're just for learning's sake. Okay, let's hop into this. To begin, you need to be super clear on where you're going to start in focusing your work. This is super clear. This helps with the prioritization. And this is what I mean by this. So again, like I said before, you would have already clarified a goal that you're focusing on, that you're pursuing. And so for the sake of this example, the goal that I have over here, is to build racially just schools, to build them systemically, but to also build them instructionally, right? So if you think about that being the driving goal, we'll just set that up there. Now, what I need you to do is to draw 3 circles. And I like to draw these circles dotted. And the reason I like to draw them dotted is to show that they are fluid, that they can expand, that they can change over time, that these are not permanent, they're not static, but rather they're dynamic. All right? And so in this middle dot, you're gonna write, what circle can we directly control? What can we directly control? In the circle right outside of it, you're gonna write, what can we directly influence? And then in this third sphere or space, you're going to write what, and please forgive my writing. I always like to say the goal of this work is not perfection. The goal of this work is racial justice. And so if the writing isn't as legible, I'm gonna definitely be dictating and speaking it to make sure that you're clear on what I'm writing, but excuse my writing. And what you're gonna write out here in this third sphere is what can we not control or influence? All right, so now here's the thing. It is very important to get extremely clear on these three phases and dimensions. The thing I want to show you here is that you start here. This doesn't mean that this is the only place you engage in work. This is the only place that you do anything, but this is where you start. So where one group may start may be completely different from where another group starts, and that's why context is so matter. And so you got to be clear on what is it you can directly control. All right. Often when I hear people feeling overwhelmed, they're feeling like, oh my God, there's nothing we can do. It's over. It's just nothing. They're often out here. They're often out into this third phase. They're focusing on things that they can't control and the things they can't influence. And it's very disempowering. It's draining. And you just feel like, what the heck am I doing? But what I want to invite you to is to start here with the things you can control and work your way out to the things that you can influence and work your way out to the things that you can't control and you can't influence. And that will start to shift over time as you build your capacity by starting here with the things that you can control. All right, so like I said before, prior to this, you would have generated some ideas, some possibilities about what we can do to start working to build a racially just school, which is your goal, instructionally and systemically and structurally, right? And so I've generated some example ideas, and what you want to do is you want to take all the ideas that were generated and you want to start to map them onto this chart. As people are generating ideas, please allow people to generate ideas without judgment. And I know the tendency can be, to say, look, why you even put that idea up? We know that ain't gonna work, right? The thing is that the process has built-in mechanisms to take care of that. Now, for this particular example, hypothetically, let's say we are a school-based leadership team, right? They're building administrators, they're teacher leaders, they're staff leaders. There may be some family and community members, but we're a school-level leadership team. All right, so here's one thing somebody generated. We need a new Secretary of Education. All right, given our context and where we are, would that go in the directly control, directly influence, or something you can't control and can't influence? Well, I'm not trying to limit your possibilities, but that's probably put this out here. The other thing, do a book study. Okay, we can control that, right? We're a leadership team at a school. Create racially just assessments. Yep, we can do that. We can put that, something that we can control. Resistant families and communities, right? So when you start doing racial justice work, people resist it. I mean, resistance is part of any organizational change, right? And oftentimes what happens is, you're talking about building racially just schools, white families and families with resources and means and power become resistant to this work, and people who benefit from the current system. And so oftentimes I find schools and districts, they're afraid to do this work in deep ways because they're scared of the white power structure and disrupting that. And they're scared of what white families are going to do. And so they encounter this resistance. But here's the thing, the resistance that families bring to you, can you directly control that? No, I mean, can you influence it? Yeah. Is it something you can't control or influence? I think there is some influence you have, so we could just put it right here. And again, I'm just putting these for examples. You may see these differently, and that's good and that's okay because you are in your collective and you are making meaning within your context. Here's another one, equity-based scheduling, okay? Can we, the schedule is, it's an ongoing work, but can we control that? Yeah, leadership team, cool. Currently, culturally relevant teaching in all classrooms. Yep, I think that's something that we can control / influence. So I'll put it on the border there, in between. Have a diversity night. Yep, we can control that. We can do that. Eliminate poverty in the neighborhood. While I think schools can have a profound impact on what happens in neighborhoods and communities, I see a lot of people get bogged down because they're like, well, we can't do anything because it's very deficit latent language. But I will put that over here as something that you can't control and influence. Although a larger conversation that I think schools can have a significant impact, but for the sake of this example, we'll put it there. Update our website to be reflective of the work we're doing racially just. Yep, that's something we can control. Have a press conference to let folks know. Externally, this is the work we're committed to, what we're doing. If, this is the idea that was generated, hey, boom, put it there. Something you can control. And then the last two things somebody generated is have a speaker series, right? A racial justice speaker series. All right, yep, that's something we can control. We can organize that. And then develop anti-racist professional learning communities. Yep, we're a leadership team. We can control developing that. So I'll put that kind of like right here. All right, so what happens is now you've gotten all the ideas that you have generated, and those ideas are in 1, 2, or 3. They're in one of these 3 spheres. So the next thing you want to do is you want to start to eliminate, right? You've generated. The next step is to now to eliminate, right? Now, what we're going to do, we're going to eliminate the things out here that we can't control and we can't influence, because we're trying to get crystal clear in prioritizing the work that we're going to start to do. So our work is not going to focus on the Secretary of Education and necessarily eliminate poverty. So we take that and move it over here. We take that and move it over here. We next come down to the things that we can influence. And what we find here is that resistant families. Our work is not going to be focused on resistant families, even though we can influence it. And so we set that off to the side as well. We have culturally relevant teaching. We have update the website. And we have all these other things that are now things that we can control. And for the sake of this example, this one is in between. And so you can make a decision, do we include it? Do we exclude it? For the sake of this example, I'm gonna leave it here, right? So you started off with, I don't know how many, maybe 10. And now we're down to probably 7 or so. And now as we continue to prioritize, we're going to continue to eliminate and to reduce this so we can be super clear and super focused. But this very first phase in prioritization is getting crystal clear on the things that you can control, because that is where you're going to focus. And the things that you can control are ideas and possibilities that have been generated by people in that context that relate up here to this larger goal that you have clarified that you want to work on. Okay, now in the next video, I'm going to go to the next phase of this prioritization. So if you have any questions thus far, please drop your questions below. If you have any comments, please drop your comments below. I ask that you please try this. Share your feedback with me, and I'm excited for you to check out the next video on the next step to prioritizing your racial justice work this school year. All right, I'll see you in the next video.